All right, thank you for joining us for today's Super Bowl 55 media availability with Kansas City Chiefs assistant head coach, special teams coordinator Dave Toub. Coach, we appreciate the time. A reminder to media, if you wish to ask a question, please use the raise hand function on your computer. And a reminder to have your first, last name, and affiliation displayed. If you're called on to ask a question, you will be asked to momentarily unmute your microphone. First question, we will go to Lindsey Jones with The Athletic.
Hi, Dave. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the kind of the head coaching hiring cycle. I know you've been through this process a couple of times. What did you learn about when you went through it, about maybe what owners are looking for? And is there anything you can tell Eric now after he's been through this a couple of times and hasn't landed a job yet?
And I could tell Eric to just be patient, because he's going to be a head coach. I mean, it's just a matter of time. Just don't lose faith in the system. Just keep working and doing what he does, and he'll be fine. Things that I've learned, I think I did my first one in 2012, and I did my last one in 2017. I did 4 of them totally. So I have 3 years now without doing one. So it's been a while, but it was a great experience. I think each time I did it, I got better. I felt like, it's kind of intimidating a little bit, but it's also exciting at the same time. And I think more and more times, I think special teams coaches should be considered for head coaching jobs. I mean, Joe Judge is a prime example of that, how well you can do, in his first year. So I think, they're great experiences, and I wouldn't mind doing it again.
Next question will come from Andrew Kaufman with KMIZ TV.
Hey, Coach. In the offseason, you guys got Andy Hill, the longtime Mizzou staffer, and with you as well on that Mizzou staff. What has he brought to you guys in this first year?
Well, Andy and I, obviously, we go way back, with our times at Missouri, and Andy. I always felt like Andy was a great communicator, and it's someone that I really admired, when I was at Missouri as a recruiter. I mean, he was just, off the charts, and that's proved to be the case here. I had a chance to get him. I actually tried to talk him out of the job, because I told him how much hard work it is and how much he would have to go back to doing kind of graduate assistant type work, and, he was in college now for 24 years. I mean, he's an experienced coach, but I couldn't talk him out of it. He took the job, and and it was lucky for us because we got a guy that he really did an outstanding job for us this year. He is a great communicator, and the guys really like him, and he's just a fun guy to be around. I mean, we have to spend so much time together, because our staff is just him and I, and you have to get along with that guy, and that's one thing that we do. We get along really great, and he's a fun guy to be around.
Next, we'll go to Mark Potash with the Chicago Sun-Times.
Hi, Dave. I know it's an old story, but where do you stand in your careers? I mean, is the head coaching thing a personal void for you at this point? And also, what is it going to take for NFL teams to be convinced? What is the best selling point that a special teams coach can be a head coach without having to be a position coach?
Well, I think the fact that we talk to the entire team, every day, offense, defense, specialists. I mean, we got those guys. I mean, we have our hands on those guys. We understand the game from the offensive perspective, defensive perspective, roster management. I mean, who knows the roster better than us? I mean, be able to pick the guys that are actually going to be up there in the week. I mean, Coach Reed allows me, to be an integral part in that, and that's a huge thing. I mean, that's so important. Game management. Decisions that happen, in-game decisions. When do you go for the first? What do you kick it? Do you punt? The rules of the game, how important that is, and then overall, just being a leader of men. I mean, that's what we do. I mean, we're managers, we're the leaders of men, and we've got to motivate guys, and that's really what coaching is all about. That's what the head coaching job is. I just think more and more guys are going to be looked at. Special teams coaches are going to be looked at because of those aspects right there.
Next question will come from Dave Matter with the St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, Dave. How's it going?
Good.
Hey, kind of touching on that question about Andy, just when you think back to your time at Missouri, just how formative were those years, not just with the relationships you since built, but the experiences and kind of launching you into this career.
I had a great time. I had a great experience at Mizzou. I was there. I got hired by Bob Stoll way back then, and I got to get. I was a carryover. Obviously, I was the strength coach for the first 9 years that I was there. Then I was a carryover with Larry Smith's staff, and then the unfortunate death of Curtis Jones. I was moved over to the defensive line my last 3 years at Mizzou. So I was there for 12 years total, and had a great experience there. Had great coaches to learn from, and then Andy Hill. Obviously, we were together for a number of those years, the Larry Smith years, and I learned a lot from him, and became a great friend with him. So it's good to be back with him again.
Next, we'll go to Austin Preboak with the Fully Loaded podcast.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
How you doing?
Good. Question for you. Having Tyreek Hill, McCole Hardman, and Pringle back there returning punts. I know we haven't seen Tyreek too much as of late. What goes into putting one of those guys back there? You just picking out of the hat, or is it kind of depending on what kind of play you need from one of those guys?
No, we don't pick him out of a hat. I mean, we practice. We have a starter. Our starter is McCole. McCole is our guy. I mean, he made a mistake last week. When it happens, guys drop passes. I mean, you can't just take all the work that he's done in the past and throw it away because he made one mistake. Despite it was a big game, but he's going to come back and he's going to bounce back in a big way, and he's going to make some big plays for us. And he did in that game. He just he didn't have an opportunity as a punt returner to make another big play, but he bounced back and made 2 huge plays on our offense, and that just showed you that. He did forget about it, and he was able to bounce back, and that's a credit to him. And we, as coaches, I mean, that's what we do. We have to support a player when things don't happen well. We have to support him and coach him up and know what you've seen in practice and let him know that we haven't lost confidence in him, and that's certainly what we haven't done. Now, we do have other guys that can do it. I mean, Tyreek is an excellent punt returner, but he does so much in our offense. We ask him to do so much there that, to ask him to be the punt returner as well, that would just be probably too much work, for him, in a game. So that's the decision that we made there. But our 2 best guys are McCole and Tyreek. And those are the guys you're going to see back there as punt returners.
Next, we'll go to Chris Emma.
Dave, how are you?
How you doing, Chris?
Good. With Coach Reed, whether it's his scheme on offense or the way he leads the team, what do you admire about his ability to be cutting edge and to continue to adapt throughout his career?
That's a good question. I mean, I've been around him a long time. I was with him, obviously. He got me in the NFL back, in Philadelphia, and I was with him for 3 years there. I was a beginning special teams assistant. But just watching him over the years, how he's developed and changed and adapted to the way the players have changed is something to see. I think that's important. You can't just be the same old school, this is how we're doing it. Don't ask any questions. I think he's adapted to that. The players want to know why they're doing stuff, and he'll teach them why. He'll explain it. And then he's a leader. He's such a leader for us as coaches. I think, he lets us do our job. He trusts us. I mean, it really comes down to trust. He trusts the players. He trusts us to do our jobs, and he lets us do our job. Now, if something isn't right, he's going to call you in, and he's not going to berate you in front of the media. He's not going to scream at you on the sideline. He'll grab you and he'll tell you, what he thinks you could do better. And as a player and a coach, you can't ask for anything better than that. And he's so consistent too, as well. He never gets too high, he never gets too low, and he's level, and that's what you want as a head coach and a leader.
Next, we'll go back to Mark Potash with the Chicago Sun-Times.
Hey, Dave, sorry to back up. I made the I committed the crime of asking two questions at once on Zoom.
Oh.
That's always a bad thing. I was curious. I would just want to go back to. Do you feel that is a void, the head coaching thing for you? Are you at peace with your standing as a obviously a very accomplished special teams coach?
There was a time where that's all I wanted to do. I mean, I said, back when I was getting those interviews, and that was, my last one was 3 years ago. But I'm getting now to a point where, would I interview again? Sure, I certainly would, but it would have to be a really, really good job and the offer that I really couldn't refuse, because I'm getting a little, I'm 58 years old, and it would have to be a right situation for me, because I'm very happy doing what I'm doing. I'm happy being on this staff, with a great team, with a great head coach, who lets me do my job. I couldn't ask for anything better, but it's not something that I'm missing in my career at all. I mean, I'm totally happy doing what I'm doing, and currently. So going forward, if it happens, it happens. But it's not something that's going to make or break me.
Next will be Pete Grathoff with the Kansas City Star.
You talked about not giving up on Hardman. What do you look for in your returners? Is it the speed element? Because those guys are both burners.
Yeah.
Something more.
There's a lot that goes to it. To being a good punt returner. You have to have a lot of courage. You have to, there's one thing about catching punts and off of jugs in practice when there's nobody coming down on the field, running down there to take your head off. So there's a big difference. So you have to have a player that's game tested, that's done it, game in and game out, caught the tough catches, got hit, was able to bounce back and catch the next punt, just with the same amount of confidence. That's what you're looking for. And McColl has proven that. I mean, he's proven he played, he had tough catches in the Super Bowl last year, the biggest game of all, that he made. I went back and looked at those just this morning. So you have to have somebody that's battle tested. That's the number one thing. Are they a good catch? And then, it comes down to athletic ability after that. Can you make a guy miss? How's your vision after you start running? Can you see the coverage coming down? Do you read your blocks well? And the speed is, that's the capper. That's the icing on the cake when you have a guy that does hit the open field and then can break it and be a game breaker because he changes angles. And we have two guys, obviously that can do that.
Next, we'll go to Haley Lewis.
Hey, Coach, I want to talk to you a little bit about Byron Pringle and the year that he's had. This is going to be a homecoming for him. And Tyreek said something yesterday along the lines that he doesn't think that Pringle really gets the shine that he deserves. Can you kind of talk about how big of an asset he really is to you guys?
He's been a great asset, especially this year. I mean, we always thought that he could be a kick returner. Even in his very first year, he had a huge kick return for us in a preseason game, and we were real excited about him and his future. Then he got hurt in that very same game. It kind of set him back, and then we kind of put it on the shelf for a while. And then we always knew that he could do it, but we got him in his first return as an NFL player in a regular season game. He takes it back for a touchdown. I mean, that was just that just told us something there that we were actually missing something there, and we needed to get him in there on a regular basis, and that's what we did. But before he became a good returner for us, he turned into a really good gunner for us as a gunner on the outside on punt team, being able to cover kicks. And last year he made a bunch of big plays for us there, caused a bunch of fair catches, and then he started working on his blocking. He kept improving there game to game. So he ended up being a four-phase player for us last year. Now this year his offense is starting to take off for him. So he's getting a lot more on offense. And then we're picking up other players like Marcus Kemp, who's taking some of his spots now as a special teams player, and then Pringle's moving into the offensive side of the ball a little bit more, and we use him a little bit less. But we're still going to use him as a kick returner. But man, what a fantastic year he had this year, and he just is a player on the rise.
Next, we'll go to Teresa Walker.
Hey, Coach. Ryan Suckup, I think your time coincided with him some there in Kansas City, and I covered him here in Tennessee the last few years. You look at him and getting ready for this game, you might not have looked at him much, but he bounced back with a strong year this year. Are surprised at all, and how ironic is it that he finally gets to a Super Bowl and it's against the team he started with there in Kansas City?
Yeah, one of the last times we played against him in a playoff game, he beat us. I think he was at Tennessee, and he made a huge kick against us. It was years back, but came back here and did it. But I'm happy for him because he's a great guy. He works hard at his craft. He's also a really good golfer. I don't know if you know that, but he's a really good golfer too. But I'm really happy that he's done where he's had the year that he had. And it's going to be really good to see him again, on Sunday and going against him. It's going to be a lot of fun.
A reminder to media that if you wish to ask a question, please use the raise hand function. We'll go back to Mark Potash with the Chicago Sun-Times.
Hey, Dave, I think going back to maybe like Corey Graham is a good example of a guy you had to convince to that special teams was his ticket. And I'm just curious in general, what have you learned about that as far as being, salesmanship, but convincing guys? Is it any easier these days than it was 10, 15 years ago? And what goes into that? How important is that for a guy like yourself to be able to have that knack for convincing guys special teams is the way to go?
That's a good question because it has changed over the years. There was a time where you needed to try to convince guys that special teams was the ticket, and that's, you're exactly right. With Corey, that was the case. Coming out of New Hampshire, in a small school, how was he going to make it? And and he did it. I mean, he actually proved that you can make a career out of being a special teamer, and that's what he did. And credit to him. But today's day and age, I think players, they understand how important special teams is, and when they come in, and they all they know that when they first come in that they have to start off on special teams. I think it's really developed and changed over the years. Everybody has a great returner. Everybody has good units now, and it's not like back in Chicago when there was very, very few teams that were really, really good. And you could take advantage of a lot of teams. Now everybody has a returner. Everybody has cover guys. But I think, the media, I think information out there about how important special teams is. I think it's gotten to the younger players, the college players you're coming out. They know that if they're going to make a football team, they need to do it on special teams. So, I mean, that helps. It helps us. When we first start out, but then as we go, you're still developing players. You're taking a good player that maybe never played special teams before, and all of a sudden now, you got him playing special teams, and he's blocking and tackling things that he might not have ever done, as an offensive defensive player. So, it's kind of fun, but at the same time, I think the players now understand a little bit more than they did back then how important it is.
We'll go to Andrew Kaufman with KMIZ TV.
Coach, I know you don't work with them every day, I'm sure, but how impressive have you been with Yasir Durant, a fellow Mizzou guy who went undrafted, and now he could potentially see some playing time in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, what a great guy. I mean, he's a monster. I mean, that's one thing about him, that the first thing you think about is how big is this human being. Like, I go up and I talk to him, and and I'm pretty tall. I'm 6'4", I'm 260 pounds, but he makes me feel like a dwarf. And he takes up so much space, and we use him on our field goal team. And, he's just so big in there, and it's hard to get around him. He's like a gentle giant, but he's done a really good job as a free agent. And, and a lot of credit goes to him, that he, worked hard to get himself in this position, and he's actually going to, he's going to actually play in this game. So, how fortunate is he, and how fortunate are we to have him? So, and he's from Mizzou. I mean, who couldn't ask for better?
We'll go to Chris Emma.
Dave, Mike Kafka talked about the way that Andy Reid tests some of these young assistants that he takes into his staff. How have you observed that in your time with Coach Reid? And do you have any examples of that or anything that kind of stands out about the way he does that?
That's a good question. You're talking about as far as testing assistant coaches, like throw them in the fire and see if they can call stuff. And
yeah. Mike Kafka, as you just said, kind of going through whether it's a play or a pre-snap or something like that, just the way that he can, pretty much puts them under the fire.
Yeah, I really can't speak for that, what happens on offense, because I'm kind of like in my, my own little tunnel there with special teams. And, he kind of leaves us alone over there. I think, and that's a credit. He trusts us to do what we do. So it's not like I haven't had firsthand experience, seeing that, to be honest with you, so it's, really tough to comment on it, but it doesn't surprise me that he does it, that he's going to try to train, his assistants to, to move up. He's not going to hold anybody back, and he's going to try to develop, and he's going to try to support guys, and we're just so fortunate to have such a great staff. I mean, we're just solid through and through.
We have time for a couple more questions. If any other media has questions, please use the raise hand function. We'll go to Brandon Zenner with St. Joseph News Press.
St. Joe.
Hey, Coach. Good morning. I hope you're doing well. I wanted to ask about the idea of run it back, and then from it being a slogan and whatnot to actually putting it into action. Just what it's been like seeing that and how special it's been to be a part of.
Man, what a year, what a season. It's hard to believe that, about a year ago today is when we played that game, and, how happy we were, to win that game and everything that came along with it. But then all of a sudden COVID hit, and when COVID hit, it kind of put a damper on everything. And we really didn't think about run it back for a while. It was all about, how are we going to be able to, get these guys coached up for the next year? How are we going to do it? Are we going to do video stuff, or how are we going to go? And just where we've been from that point to now, it's amazing. It's a credit to our whole building, really. I mean, just what we went through every day, testing every day. And then our families you're worried about where your family's going. Are they going out? Are they getting contact? I mean, and then every day you get tested, the very next day you're always looking at your phone to see if you tested positive. It's just it's a very stressful thing, the COVID aspect of the whole thing. And then the way our guys handled it is just really remarkable. And really the whole league, for that matter. I mean, the fact that we got, almost 300 games in, whatever that number is, but, in getting ready to get the last game in, is just really amazing to me. But, it's, Coach talked about running it back, and here we are. I mean, we did it. I mean, we're back at that game, and now we got to finish it. And man, how good is that going to be? To get another win back to back. I mean, it's just amazing. Just to get the first one. And I was so happy with Coach Reid last year, and this would be. I mean, you want to talk about Hall of Fame coach? I mean, this would definitely solidify that.
We'll go back to Andrew Kaufman with KMIZ TV.
Just, we've mentioned Andy Hill a couple times now, but how good would you feel for a guy like that who's put so much time into football for him to win a Super Bowl?
He just last year he was talking about we were talking the other day, and he said last year he was gonna buy a ticket because he's a Chiefs fan his whole life. Growing up in Trenton, Missouri, and he always had his eye on the Chiefs, and he was gonna buy a ticket, whatever the tickets cost, he was gonna come down. But it's just so ironic that he's a coach on the team that's going to the Super Bowl again. And I just wish he could have experienced the whole thing, that, the real Super Bowl experience, but it's going to be good while we're there. We're going to fly in Saturday, and it's going to be exciting nonetheless. And, once we come out of that tunnel, it's going to be really, really special, for both of us. But, being his first time, I think he's going to really, really enjoy it.
All right, so this will conclude today's media availability session with Kansas City Chiefs Assistant Head Coach, Special Teams Coordinator Dave Toub. Coach, we appreciate the time.
Thank you.